And I know you're in the States, you're in New York, so I've got to ask you about your opinions in regards to Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s, his introduction into the government, and how 2 years ago this guy was deplatformed. He was a quack. You couldn't, he and now he's like at the highest official in American health. Like it's a unbelievable story. But looking forward, looking to the future, looking for the solutions, because we just want people to be healthier and happier, and and live wonderful lives. And pass it on to their kids. That's what we want. But how do you see what's your do you see a alignment in like what he's doing in his administration?
I've never been more aligned with a human being in my entire life. I will tell you this, and I don't make it a point to be political ever. I'm just not that person. I am a person who is passionate about health and wellness, and so is RFK Jr. In fact, he has, like you were just saying, risked his reputation as a Kennedy. That is pretty much as close as you come to royalty in America.
Yeah.
And he comes from a family. People forget, and he has been bashed. He has been criticized. He has been attacked. This man cares about health and wellness for Americans.
Yeah.
And the changes he's making, I will tell you, the things that you hear coming out of R.F. Kennedy Jr.'s mouth had all come out of mine at one point.
Yeah. Hello all and welcome to True Hope Cast, the podcast where we dive deep into the powerful connection between mental and physical health. In a world that's both beautiful and wild, we're here to bring you motivation, inspiration, knowledge and real solutions for living well, body, mind and soul. I'm your host, Simon Brazier, and today's episode is going to shake up how you think about medicine, healing, and the root cause of chronic disease. We're joined by none other than Dr. Raj Gupta, a nationally recognized wellness expert who's been featured on NBC, Fox News Radio, and top-tier publications like Reader's Digest, US News and World Report, and Women's Day. Dr. Gupta is a passionate advocate for holistic wellness, medical transparency, and treating the root, not just the symptoms. With his upcoming third book, Reverse Your Diabetes, Treat the Root, Not the Fruit, he's challenging the mainstream pill for an ill mentality and offering real life-based strategies that empower people to take control of their health. Trust me, you are not going to want to miss out on this episode. But before we dive in, don't forget to follow True Hope Cast wherever you get your podcasts and tap that notification bell so you never miss an episode that's filled with actionable insights and life-changing conversations. And for more on who we are and our mission here at True Hope Canada, we are all about promoting brain and body health through non-invasive nutritional means. So do head over to www.truehopecanada.com. Enjoy the show. All right. Hello, Dr. Raj. Welcome to True Hope Cast. How are you? What is going well?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, Simon.
Yeah, of course. It's a pleasure to have you here. And we're going to be discussing breaking free from the pill for an ill mentality. But before we jump into that topic, would you mind just giving us a little bit of an introduction about who you are and what it is that you do, please?
Absolutely. So my name is Dr. Raj Gupta. I'm a chiropractor of 29 years. I can't even believe that now. And I've had tremendous success in helping people reclaim their lives in all aspects. First, it was musculoskeletal. I, as a chiropractor, treating them with chiropractic services, but then I built a multidisciplined practice to include physical therapy, occupational therapy, acupuncture, IV nutrition drips. And then I built a spa and a gym to go in the same facility with my medical practice. So I built a wellness center. And then I built another, and then I wrote some books on how to build wellness centers. And somewhere along the way, about 10 years ago, I was exposed to, from another colleague, functional medicine, which is actually getting to the root cause of chronic diseases. And Simon, it's like I fell in love with another. I never looked back. I mean, I'll tell you, when you're able to getting to the pill for an ill society, when you're able to help people reduce and then eliminate medications, that was it for me. There was no better feeling that I've ever had. And I don't think I ever will. I have a passion for it. So I began helping people reclaim their lives by identifying the root cause of why they have high blood sugar to begin with.
So question, during that journey when you have been, you've been practicing and working and building wellness centers and doing so much for individuals and I guess the community, and then you are introduced to functional medicine, like who introduced that to you and why did it, what you use the word, what did you fall in love with that, and how and why had you not maybe heard about that beforehand through all your training and experience?
Well, sure. I still think that to this day, 9 out of 10 people do not know that type 2 diabetes is reversible. That's well documented worldwide. But if you don't know, it's probably because it was intended for you not to know. There's big money in keeping people on medications. They are creating lifetime customers, the pharmaceutical company. So how I found out about this is as I grew in my field, within my field, I became a leader within the field. And I had the unbelievable opportunity to speak at chiropractic conventions and join many of these high-level think tank mastermind groups. And it was there that I was exposed to some colleagues who had been on Netflix specials, others who have been reversing chronic diseases, not just diabetes, but underactive thyroid, working with autoimmune diseases, cognitive decline, which is actually known as type 3 diabetes. And I was blown away. And I started to speak and learn more through my colleagues. And then through one of these mastermind groups, I met with Dr. Amen. Dr. Amen is a leader in the functional medicine field who specializes in cognitive decline. My wife, who is an occupational therapist for 20 years, after hearing Dr. Amen, and I at this point had been doing functional medicine for a couple of years, she stood up and told Dr. Amen. We were in a small group. We were so fortunate. There's probably about 10 of us in this group listening to Dr. Amen speak and tell his story. My wife stood up and said, "That's it. I'm going back to school." She became a nurse. The next day, she was enrolled to become an RN and then an NP. And now she's beginning a new career in functional medicine as well.
Well, I wonder, it's so funny how just having those conversations and being opened up to functional medicine as a whole changes people's perceptions and also provides this element of motivation that allows people to completely change course in their lives, literally over a dinner. Like, I think that is amazing. I think that's actually quite a frequent thing when people are fortunate enough to have conversations with, really, really amazing people who know exactly what they're talking about. They've seen thousands and thousands of patients. They've seen the recovery. They've seen the healing. And, it's not that, and they're primarily not using allopathic pharmaceutical medicine. They're using stuff that's actually quite free and available when it comes down to, I guess, like habitual choices and having that self-motivation to be able to take yourself on that journey.
Well, you mentioned motivation and mindset. Those that come, I can't reverse everyone's diabetes. I can't do it. I have to have a patient who has had the light switch go off. And I don't, it's not a light switch. It's a light switch. They have, something goes off in them, Simon. You see it, you feel it. It's tangible. They're like, that's it. They have reached the end point. They're like, there's something else. I know there is. I can't live this way one more second.
Yeah. I've got a lot of experience with people who have that epiphany moment.
Yes.
And they all of a sudden have this very, very clear goal. And what's very different about that, because you can have a clear goal on January 1st of losing weight or whatever it might be, or to exercise more, whatever that might be. But the difference between what we're talking about here is, I think you've got a clear intention, it's a clear goal, but it's wrapped up in really positive emotions. That's not, it's not negative. It's not like self-loathing, or I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I'm overweight. There's a very, very different frequency in those negative emotions to the emotions of joy, grace, love, happiness, And I think when you've got that clear intention with that emotional set, people do amazing things very quickly.
Agreed. One thing you touched upon is there's definitely a difference between a wish and a goal. A wish, there are no consequences for not achieving that wish. There are for goals. And I will tell you, when people get to that point where they are ready to have that light switch, another thing that you had just said that is super important is that we all have a subconscious, and the subconscious is like a genie in a bottle. It is that your wish is its command. So like you're saying, if you are looking at yourself and feeding yourself thoughts of, I'm so fat, I'm not enough, I'm not strong enough, I'm different, the genie is just going to be like, yes, you are. So you have to be very conscientious of your thoughts. You have to tame and quiet down your subconscious, which is trying to keep you safe. But the definition of safe for the subconscious is no change. Mm-hmm. And, expecting a different result from doing the same thing over and over again, that's the definition of insanity. So you have to convince your subconscious that it's actually more dangerous and life-threatening to stay where you are than to make that change.
Yeah, beautifully said, beautifully said. And I've looked through your website, looked through some of your content, and you often talk about treating the root, not the fruit. So I wonder if you could maybe unpack what that means and how the pill for an ill mindset really misses the mark when it comes to real healing.
It sure does. You are absolutely correct. So what happens is there's a reason that people have the diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. A smart person will say, well, it's because I have high blood sugar. And that is true. But even a smarter person will say, I have high blood sugar because I have insulin resistance. And frankly, that is probably as far as allopathic medicine will give you a reason. The reasons that they give you are totally false. There is no gene, diabetic gene. So they always say that, well, it's a family history, it's your genetics, but there has been no gene in science identified linked to diabetes. Cognitive decline, yes. Breast cancer, yes. Other diseases, yes, but not diabetes. It's not your pancreas. Typically, if it were your pancreas, typically you're a type 1 diabetic. Type 2 diabetics that I meet, 9 out of 10 of them, their pancreas is doing great. So what is it? It is.
Sorry, can I just interrupt you for 1 second? Why do you think that these doctors are spreading this myth or this lie about this genetic factor? Because I bet you that is probably one of the first things that is being told to patients.
Yes.
And not only, so 2 parts of my question: why do you think that they're still spreading this misinformation? And 2, what does that do you think in the patient-doctor relationship when I'm telling you something that's actually it's not your fault, so there's nothing you really can do about it? Like, what does that do to the progress?
Oh, but hold on a second, Simon. Patients are led to believe it is their fault.
Okay.
The doctor is there to tell you to diet and exercise, which are definitely 2 aspects of our lifestyle that contribute to this lifestyle disease, but it does not stop there. There are other aspects to our lifestyle that no one does the detective work to find. So why, the first part of your question, the misinformation, I don't believe that the doctors believe it's misinformation. This is what they have been taught in medical school. Now, the curriculum in medical school is controlled by the pharmaceutical companies. Now, that's not a jab. Now, think about this. there are so many new medications on the market each year for all these diseases we've never even heard of. They're coming out with medications for who is better to teach those medical physicians how to apply these medicines than the people who actually created them. So the medical schools are just an influx of pharmacology knowledge from the pharmaceutical companies. Now, unfortunately, a medical doctor has one tool on their belt. That tool is medicine. So they are taught to treat the fruit, not the root. You come in with a symptom, they give you something to squelch that symptom without looking for the reason why you have that symptom. Back to diabetes, there's other aspects of your lifestyle, like the 700,000 toxins that Americans come in contact with on a daily basis. 700,000. There's hormone irregularity that is swept under the rug. Yeah. There are more hysterectomies performed unnecessarily each year, just due to lack of detective work. Hormone irregularity, you can balance out your hormones naturally. Yeah. There are underlying infections that go missed. There are autoimmune diseases that never get diagnosed. Simon, the amount of GI tract problems, it's just 7. So Hippocrates, you may know that name. All doctors take the Hippocratic Oath. Hippocrates was the father of modern medicine, and this guy believed that all disease came from the gut. And he wasn't far off. He wasn't correct, but he wasn't far off, because 70% of all of your immune system cells come from your gut. But no one gets a stool test anymore. And that's what Hippocrates believed in: blood, urine, and stool. If you have a pet, maybe your pet has been lucky enough to get a stool test, but not you as a human.
Yeah, it's pretty wild in regards to, let's say, the simplicity of diagnosis when it comes to the majority of people who go in to see a doctor, I think, with like chronic issues. Yeah. I think that if you were to take a look at the intestinal tract of these individuals, look at what they're consuming, look at the microbiome of people. I mean, you can actually, it's a very, very simple, cheap thing to do to be actually to be able to do a stool test to see kind of like what's going on down there. And I was luckily enough, when I moved to Canada, I studied holistic nutrition for 4 years, and we talked all about stool and how like informative it can be, even though it's not a conversation not everyone wants to have. But you can learn so much about somebody's health by what they're doing in the bathroom, whether that's like, there you go, I love that. whether that's once every 4 or 5 days or 4 times every day, like, everyone's kind of got their wild story, but it tells a whole lot. And I don't think doctors are really being taught about the impact of the microbiome, its role in your immune health, its role in your psychological health when it comes to depression, anxiety, etc.
Absolutely.
If you're unable to produce the necessary neurotransmitters within your gut, that then you're going to have sleep problems, you're going to have digestive problems, you're just going to have problems all over the map. But if you were to just like focus on the gut, get that healed up, which is relatively, I don't want to say easy to do. I think it's the habitual changes, which is the challenging piece. But again, if you've got that clear intention wrapped around positivity, then these things are a lot easier for people to come in to be able to achieve. Yes. But it's like, again, like how many doctors are having conversations with their patients about like the probiotics they may be consuming, or like their toilet habits. I can't imagine that it's as common as it needs to be. Yes.
It's funny. I just did a session in my most recent masterclass the other day on GI tract problems, leaky gut, and the explanation of what that is. And I was explaining that when I'm going through an intake form, people who have problems with their GI tract that really want help will write it down, like, I'm having problems. Others don't, but I'm looking at their blood work and I'm like, everything's pointing to GI tract problems. And I have to ask, and I do that surreptitiously, because that they are going to be a little bit embarrassed. They didn't put it on their paperwork, but it's a difficult conversation.
Yeah, it sure is. It sure can be. I guess if you're able to get have a practitioner that you're working with that can kind of create the therapeutic alliance where you can be open to having those conversations and asking those questions in the right way, it can be very, very relieving, if you don't mind the pun.
I was just going to say,
yeah.
You know what? Most of their physicians will not broach the question.
No, because I think it probably ends up being a 25-minute conversation, and they've probably got 8 minutes, 7 minutes in a consultation.
8 minutes. That's exactly right. On average, 8 minutes is the visit. Yeah,
and that's a long conversation after you get over the awkwardness of it all. But
yes,
But I just want to say there's some amazing practitioners, whether that's a nutritionist, even there's some really amazing functional chiropractors out there that can have those conversations, because there's obviously a lot of connection with the bones, with the spine, with the body, with alignment, all connecting up with everything we're kind of talking about here. And
it's natural for chiropractors to get into functional medicine. As a chiropractor, I was taught also to get to the root cause. Also, there's a reason why someone's getting headaches on a regular basis, and it's certainly not due to a lack of Tylenol in their body. So you got to find out why. It's typically coming from their neck, and there's other aches and pains that pain relievers or NSAIDs. That's not the answer. It's the same thing as taking diabetic meds to cover up your diabetes. So it's a natural transition. I found out how to help people with chronic disease, and I took it to another level. That's where the passion is. It was always there.
I'd love to ask you something a little bit off topic in regards to like the history of chiropractic, because I think when you look back, when somebody takes a deep dive into kind of let's just say big pharma's role within medicine, creating allopathic medicine, and their roles in like universities and schools, etc. Not many of the, I want to call them traditional modalities survived, but chiropractic was certainly one of them that kind of survived the, let's just say this onslaught of allopathic medicine. We lost a lot of homeopathic medicine. We lost a lot of phytotherapy. So like, obviously just like using plants, which, would have been used for hundreds of thousands of years as medicine. And the majority of drugs we have today are, derived from natural compounds. So I'd love to just know, like, why do you think chiropractic survived?
It's the spine. And there is a pun as well of every chiropractor. That we are like cockroaches. It's in our blood to fight for people's health and wellness.
Nice.
And we've been fighting since conception. No kidding. My predecessors went to jail for practicing chiropractic in many states.
Yeah.
And it wasn't so long ago. I remember it's changed a lot. There's been a lot more acceptance of chiropractors in my career from beginning to current time. When I had first graduated, I almost had to defend myself and defend chiropractic, I felt. Now people get what we do. There's even less people. I mean, for a lot of people to hear that I, as a chiropractor, are helping people reverse their diabetes, that's a bit of a stretch for some. But for others, they're like, that makes sense. Though, I think it's 1 in every 27 people see a chiropractor, and I'm hoping that changes. We're primary healthcare doctors, and we're going to look for natural solutions prior to having to resort to allopathic medicine.
I think the more options people are able to have, and not obviously not everything is accessible when it comes to finances, and even just if you live in rural areas, you might not have a holistic nutritionist or an acupuncturist or a TCM practitioner. So that I think, especially living in British Columbia, there's a lot of these practitioners around, and they are accessible, and some of them do like community pricing, which is just amazing. But it can be tricky. And I think if I was in the role of trying to make as much money as I possibly can as in the pharmaceutical industry, eliminating the competition would no, that's business. That's business 101.
Oh yeah.
And I'd love to talk a little bit about prescriptions and individual health. So like in a system that often reaches for prescriptions first within allopathic medicine, how can patients advocate for themselves and shift towards more of a proactive lifestyle based approach to their health?
I think that there's a trend in that direction. I think after COVID, a lot of people took a look at their health from the outside in. And there are those who were pro-vaccine. There were those that were anti-vaccine. But no matter which side you were on, you were forced to really kind of look at things. And I think people these days understand that if you depend on your health insurance to keep you healthy, I mean, that's really silly. It should be called sick insurance. Really, you only use it when you get sick. And frankly, depending on your health insurance to keep you healthy, it's like depending on your life insurance to keep you alive.
Yeah.
It's not there. You must get proactive. I think that people are starting to realize that. They're starting to take and reclaim their health and get into the driver's seat, where in the past they would put entirely all of their trust into their physicians, almost like clergy.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that there is more of, I see it with diabetic patients. They trust their doctor and they say, oh my goodness, I have this disease. Well, I will just do what my doctor says to do. And quote unquote, I will get better. Yeah. And they keep that hope until they lose hope, because they go from one med to another med and they start to lose faith in their physicians, because they're getting worse and they're just increasing the number of meds. And I think that people think that the medication that they take for the diabetes is actually helping them. Yeah. It's not. It kind of manages and controls. That's what the doctor's trying to do until the disease below the surface actually gets worse. And then you require more medication. It's kicking the can down the road. And people will kick the can down the road a certain amount or distance before they're like, wait a second, this isn't working. So then they become more open-minded and looking for alternatives. But unfortunately, Simon, it's diabetes is a slow roll, and it's a slow killer. It's effective at killing people because it's so slow. So unfortunately, and 67% of diabetics will die of a heart attack or stroke.
Yeah, it's really sad. And we mentioned it at the top of the show that there's an industry that is heavily profiting on people being insulin resistant. And if people were to become healthy and were to reduce those numbers to 5% of the American population had insulin resistance, that's probably, I don't know, 40, 50 billion a year that a company is not making, which at the end of the day, like when you're talking about a corporation, a body, it's not a human person making that decision. They're making the best interest that they can for their shareholders, their stakeholders, to make money. It's a really sad state of affairs, but it's the reality that we've created. It
is broken. It is a broken healthcare system. It is affecting Americans. We are 37th in world health. It's, you know who's 36? Costa Rica, and they are a third world country.
Yeah,
it's funny, but not. It's a pill for an ill society, and it makes money on keeping people sick. So the biggest thing that gets my goat, Simon, this is where I'm hoping for change. Health insurance pays for all those medications. They pay for amputation. The number one reason for amputation, blindness, kidney replacement, and dialysis is type 2 diabetes, all of which are covered by insurance. But teaching you a healthy lifestyle, doing the detective work to find out what the true cause is, and then providing supplementation, none of it's covered.
No.
So it's difficult.
Yeah, that's a bit of a disaster, really. Yeah.
Yes.
I'd love to talk to you about micronutrients and supplementation. Two of our products here at True Hope Canada. So our flagship product is a broad spectrum micronutrient formula. It's 36 ingredients. It's actually the most studied micronutrient formula on the planet. And what we have found, when it comes to diabetes, that is, people who are, let's just say, overweight, have type 2 diabetes, a lot of these individuals are sleeping badly, they've got very low energy levels, and they're depressed, they're anxious, and they have mental health problems. And they find our product, they find Empower Plus, which has predominantly been studied for such things as depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, very serious psychological disorders. And they take this product not for their insulin resistance or their weight issues, but they take it to try and help them deal with their mental health problems. And they take this product, and because it's formulated in such a way, it's chelated for 4 days. The industry standard is 4 hours. So our minerals are getting into people's brains and re-nutrifying them. And very quickly, they start to feel significantly better. And then they're interested to look at what other products we have. We have 5 other products, but one that we often get them on is inositol, or myo-inositol, which obviously has a significant amount of research for increasing insulin sensitivity and getting a hold of controlling glucose. And then when they're to combine the two products together, like they start to lose weight, they actually start to reduce the cravings that they have for certain foods, because their brain is being fed in a let's just say positive way because of the micronutrients that they're being taken. And it's just remarkable to see that in a very short period of time, people's psychology begins to change, and their mindset around what they're eating and how they're eating, it reverses in quite a miraculous way. And I just wanted to get your opinions, your experience in regards to maybe some of the more overlooked micro and even macronutrients, I guess. And what do you think about that?
Yes, for sure. We provide micronutrients for our patients, for sure. In addition to finding the root cause and eliminating the insult, we nurture people's organs with nutrients. So yes, it's a crucial part. But I think there's several parts: micro nutrients and macronutrients. Vitamins and minerals are very important. You need to supplement your diet. We don't get it from the food any longer.
Yeah.
Our food has been stripped of all vitamins and nutrients over the years. So we do need to supplement our diet no matter who we are. But supplementation, I don't believe, is enough. We also, so it will certainly help.
Yeah.
And your micronutrient sounds, that your formula sounds fantastic. And I suspect it addresses some gut imbalances because it's helping with mental health. And when you're talking about it affecting glucose and insulin receptors, of course, so that's going to help your body work again. But the reason why it stopped working is and created insulin resistance is because I liken the mitochondria, the powerhouse cell of the body that it takes the food we eat and the energy, the air we breathe, and it mashes it together and converts that into energy for us, ATP. So I think that the mitochondria is a stud, but it only likes one type of fuel. And if it's the wrong fuel, like toxins or hormone irregularity or infections, trying to get into the mitochondria, that's when it puts up walls of resistance to allowing those cells into its cell, the mitochondria. So identification of what aspects of your lifestyle, what is the bad fuel, is important, and equally as important to nurturing the organs back to health is finding the problem that was hurting and beating up the organs to begin with. High insulin is one of the biggest things that choke out the kidneys. So you can give supplements to nurture the kidneys. We do it all the time. You can reverse chronic kidney disease. But if the insult to the kidneys is still there, being insulin, until you eliminate the insulin resistance, then the kidneys are always going to be at risk. and then doing the testing to find out what the insult is, and then removing that. That's when we are able to see the micronutrients actually be more effective.
Yeah, really well said. Yeah, I think that the fact that, our soil is just so poor, and the way that we are, monocropping across the Western world, producing nutrient deficient food
And
then,
glyphosate. Oh my God, adding toxins to them.
Yeah. So the fact that we're consuming like nutrient poor foods, plus we're being exposed to, what did you say, 700,000 different toxins every single day, like that overload, and the liver that's supposed to detoxify and eliminate these things that are inside of our body, they run primarily on micronutrients that we are supposed to get from our food.
Right.
We're unable to do that. So if we're not taking good quality supplements, as you said, I think everybody will benefit from taking. I used to think before I started studying nutrition, I generally thought I could just eat really well, avoid all the naughty things, and I'd be absolutely fine. But when you start looking into the fact that our soil is what it is, and our gut is being it's being changed all of the time, and whether from the water that we're drinking, the air that we are exposing ourselves to, it's this ever fluctuating, beautiful organism, then you have to recognize that there's so much external stress coming in. You might not be feeling it, but your body is having to constantly ramp itself up into full motion to be able to do it. And if it doesn't have the necessary cofactors, coenzymes, all those tiny little ingredients as building blocks that it needs to be able to produce these biochemicals to eliminate these things and make you feel great, then you're always going to be in a state of lack. You're always going to struggle, and you will end up in a doctor's office, and you'll probably get on a prescription for something else, which will end up depleting you even further. And it just turns into this like vicious cycle. But like the foundational piece for sure for me is like, we are consuming nutrient poor foods, therefore we're chronically nutrient deficient in kind of all areas, and we're being exposed at an unprecedented level. Therefore, we really have to take our health seriously.
Very well said. The days of leaving your health to your doctor have been long gone. Long gone. It's almost like buyer beware when you go to the physician. And I hear my patients tell me that they're fighting with their doctors all the time. No, doc, I don't want another med. I don't want this medication. I want to get off of my meds. And they kind of are very condescending in the way that they say, it's okay. Just be a good patient. Take your medication. Go home, diet and exercise. And then you have those patients that they've lost like 100 pounds and their A1C climbs. And they're like, what is going on? And, so you don't, and this is another myth. People think that they gain weight and that causes insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes, but it's actually the exact opposite. You get insulin resistance first that causes you to gain weight. Mm-hmm. I don't have it up right now, but I have a picture of myself 28 years ago, 80 pounds heavier.
Yeah.
I was a size 36 or 38 waist. I'm now a 33. I lost 80 pounds. I put 10 pounds back on in muscle. And there was a point where I never went to the gym. In fact, I didn't like people named Jim, but I I had the light switch go off. I did a detox on a dare. One of my colleagues said, and I wanted to prove that they did not work. And in a 10-day detox, I lost 19 pounds. So I explained to people that it wasn't me fat that made me toxic. Yeah. It was the toxins that made me fat. So when I got the toxins out, guess what went with it? So people got it all wrong. They've been led to believe that it's their fault. They give up. They hate going to the doctor. Simon, so many patients of mine tell me that they dread going. They sit in their car and they cry.
Oh.
It's awful. It's awful.
Yeah, and I try to have sympathy for the doctors, because they're obviously trapped within a dogma, within an ideology in which they've sacrificed a lot of their time and
their entire lives. They don't want it to be wrong.
No, and then you see people who do break out of that system and do, let's say, they whistle blow and they take an alternative route. And I have these conversations with people about, who are kind of on the other fence of COVID, who don't think these individuals are credible. But I'm like, these are the people that are standing up. They're saying what they truly believe after lots of experience, and they've got absolutely nothing to gain from it. In fact, they lose their reputations. They lose their medical practice in some cases, and they are, they don't have any money, but they're still like they're being true to their Hippocratic oath, and they can't kind of live in that ideology which is not putting patient and health first. And it can be a challenging thing to navigate around, because we've been kind of programmed and taught from a young age, when you play doctors and nurses when you're 4 or 5 years old, that's where you go when you're sick and there's no other kind of alternative. It's deeply ingrained, but I don't know, I feel maybe there's a little shift happening.
I think so. I feel it as well. Yes. Cool. People are fed up.
Yeah.
They're sick and tired of being sick and tired. Yeah. And I know that sounds so cliche, but it is true.
Super accurate, though. It's super accurate. Mm-hmm. And I know you're in the States, you're in New York, so I've got to ask you about your opinions in regards to Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s, his introduction into the government, and how, 2 years ago, this guy was deplatformed. He was a quack. You couldn't, and now he's like at the highest official in American health. Like it's an unbelievable story. But looking forward, looking to the future, looking for the solutions, because we just want people to be healthier and happier, and and live wonderful lives, and pass it on to their kids. That's what we want. But how do you see? What's your do you see an alignment in like what he's doing in his administration?
I've never been more aligned with a human being in my entire life. I will tell you this, and I don't make it a point to be political ever. I'm just not that person. I am a person who is passionate about health and wellness, and so is RFK Jr. In fact, he has, like you were just saying, risked his reputation as a Kennedy. That is pretty much as close as you come to royalty in America.
Yeah.
And he comes from a family. People forget, and he has been bashed. He has been criticized. He has been attacked. This man cares about health and wellness for Americans.
Yeah.
And the changes he's making, I will tell you, the things that you hear coming out of R.F. Kennedy Jr.'s mouth had all come out of mine at one point.
Yeah, I think that for a lot of people, hearing him talk about anything is relatively new. Maybe even the last year, probably 99% of people have been hearing about him. But if you've been tracking him for, let's say, 5+ years,
yes.
I think we're so lucky with like long form conversation podcasts, where you're able to actually listen to an individual hold themselves and converse and be challenged, and in like a 3-hour setting, in like a Joe Rogan interview, for example. I feel like most people are able to recognize whether that person is full of BS or not, whether they're authentic or not. And when you watch enough of that content and take that in, I feel like you end up aligning a lot with what those individuals are saying, just because you feel that they're being truthful and they're being authentic. They're being open to their own mistakes. They're open to changing their mind. And I feel blessed that he's out there doing his thing. I think just as a young parent, and he wants to put kids' health like first before anything, absolutely smashing up the conventional dogma around the toxins that are put into food,
it's no joke. He's no joke.
He's
There's
no
nothing
joke
about him that is disingenuous. No. Zero.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what happens. Like, it's a wonderful time to be alive, that's for sure.
Me too.
So we're just kind of like watching this space, and I'm truly hoping that a lot of that trickles over into Canada, because there's some wild things happening here, especially when it comes to the natural health industry. Basically, short version is Health Canada and the Liberal government are doing their very, very best to put natural health products in the same category as pharmaceuticals and have them go through the same red tape to be accessible, which is going to basically destroy the natural health industry. There's an organization, an amazing one called the Natural Health Products Protection Association, the NHPPA, and they're doing everything that they possibly can to basically reclassify natural health products to be in a completely different category, like they are in the US, where they're basically a food. They go under the food. Yes. They go under a food act. So therefore, they've got a lot more protection, and it's the FDA's job to prove that something is dangerous and not effective, rather than the other way around. Here, like, it's so difficult to get a good quality product onto the market, and supplement companies aren't billion-dollar organizations, but they're going to be expected to do the same thing as Pfizer and J&J and all these other companies. So it's really quite a wild time up here, but I'm really hoping that what Robert Kennedy Jr. is perhaps doing will hopefully trickle over. I know that Canadians hate to take any type of advice from America. But that's just a lot of nonsense.
I think we all have to get over it.
We just got to look to the future. Just look to the future and stop looking back to the past and having your present being completely predicted by past events. There's just no way to live your life. So
no way.
I'm hoping to see positive change from that. But again, like, we're just all in the audience watching the theater, watching the show. We'll see what happens.
That's it.
Well, Dr. Ross, thank you so much for coming onto the show. I feel like there's plenty of other areas in which we can jump into on future episodes if you're open to coming back on. But I really appreciate your time today. Can you just let people know where is the best place that they can learn more about you and what you do?
Sure. Yes. Well, the first and foremost best place to find me is I have an active, living, breathing Facebook group. It's a community of, oh my goodness, I'm so proud of the people in this community. We've got over 20,000 members, and it's called Real Health Roots. So you would just go to your groups tab on your Facebook homepage and then do a search for Real Health Roots, and you will see my mug pop up. In there, it's great, man. I can't stop smiling. It's just a great, warm feeling of people all looking to help one another get across the finish line and reversing their type 2 diabetes. There are tips, tricks, recipes, testimonials from people. I'm going to read off a testimonial today, later when I go live, from one of my patients. We call it ring the bell, when the patient goes to see their physician and the physician's eyes bug out of their head and their jaw falls to the ground and they say, "What are you doing?" And when the doctor says, "I don't know what you're doing, just keep doing it," we ring a bell. We ring a bell in the community. So
it's magic. It's magic.
It's called Real Health Roots. You can also go to our website of the same name, www.realhealthroots.com. I want to thank you for the opportunity. I think we're cut from the same cloth, you and I, Simon.
I completely agree. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll make sure that there's a link to the website and a direct link to the Facebook group so people can find that nice and easy. Great. And I love that community piece. I think that if people to just put a little bit of community and nature into their lives, things will change for them very, very quickly. So that community piece on the healing journey is probably the most important thing, because going into anything that is significantly difficult, it's scary to do it alone, but when you've got other people going through it with you, it's a lot easier. And there's a lot of people out there going through similar things and who have come out the other side, and you can certainly be a part of that story.
Absolutely. Thanks again.
Beautiful. Thank you again, Dr. Raj, for joining us today. That is it for this episode of True Hope Cast, the official podcast of True Hope Canada. Again, if you need any more information about connecting with Dr. Raj, you can go to the show notes. I'll add some links in there. You can leave us a review on iTunes if you want, and a star review on Spotify. That is it, though, for this week. We'll see you soon.